Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to GearFest 2018. We're in the studio with a special guest. We have Carlitos Del Puerto here.
How you doing?
Great to see you, man.
Great to see you. Thank
Appreciate
you
you
for
taking
me.
time. I know you're going on stage very shortly to do a workshop.
In a few minutes. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. What kind of things are you going to be doing?
Well, I'll play, of course, and talk a little bit about music. But what I do is I kind of talk about like my journey in the business and how being able to go from one style and different artists, and just tell my story, and hope that inspires people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. You've had an incredible career.
Thank God.
Incredible journey. Yeah. Yeah. I saw you. I guess it's been 3-4 years ago with the Vigil with Chick Corea.
Oh, yeah.
At the Blue Note in New York.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was an incredible show,
amazing.
and that was the first time I'd heard you play.
Right.
And I've been following you since, and just tremendous stuff you've been doing. So congratulations on all that.
Thank you so much. Actually, the video was my first encounter with Chick.
Yeah.
And I've been with Chick for 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first band I played with him. And then we did another reincarnation, just trio, me and Marcus Gilmore. And then I just finished a big tour with him this year with Steve Gadd.
Right.
And, a bunch of amazing musicians. So it was a great experience,
Right. The three of you did an album together recently.
Yeah. It's called Chinese Butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Chick Corea and Steve Gadd Band. It just came out. I'm actually going to play some of that material in the clinic today.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh,
She gave me the tracks.
Nice.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you had quite an experience coming up in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
Your father is kind of one of the leading lights, if you will, one of the innovators in bass in that country.
Yeah. Well, there's always talk about a great bass player that came from Cuba too. His name was Cachao. And Cachao is kind of like the father of the bass playing, the old school bass playing in Cuba. Well, my father is the father of the modern bass playing in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
My dad pretty much was the guy that introduced electric bass in Cuba.
Amazing.
Because up on the time that he came, it was only double bass.
Right.
And actually he told me a story like the first time he saw an electric bass, it was the Orquesta de Música Moderna, the Modern Orchestra of Cuban Music, I guess that's the name of it. And my dad got the job, and they called him and they said, hey, we want you to play bass. And my dad shows up with the upright bass. He said, no, that's not the bass. This is the bass. And there was a Fender case like that. My dad looked at it. He was like, man, I was so scared. It looked like a coffin, And, he played it. He took it out. And the guitar player told him, hey, kid, you don't know how to plug this in, no? And he said, oh, this cable goes here, and this cable goes here. And he opened the volume, and the bass is like really loud, and everybody was like, freaking out. So yeah, my dad is the father of modern bass playing in Cuba. Yeah.
Incredible coming up with that as both as a heritage and as a resource to learn from and to study with. So I was interested to read about you. You got a scholarship to USC,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of things you said as you made that transition over interested me. You had come out of largely the classical and jazz background, and you talked a lot about learning the other styles of music once you came to California, and you talked about learning the DNA of those styles.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you do that. How do you get in and actually sound authentic playing a style?
Okay, the thing about that's a really interesting story, because as you said, what they teach primarily in the Cuban schools was classical music from the Russian school, actually amazing teachers, and you get all the technique and the facility on the instrument, but there's kind of a big void on the music side of it, because the technique is fantastic, but you need to have music, because you're not going to be playing scales on the jobs,
Right.
So the jazz part of it, I learned with all my friends in school and stuff, like just taking records and stuff like that. And then when I got to Los Angeles, it was really difficult for me to get any jobs, because I had no vocabulary on different things. So it took me a long time, and I actually thank God that it took me that long time, because it was the time I had to learn all this stuff. So what you said about how did I get into the DNA? For example, the Motown music. I had never heard the Motown music in my life.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I hear it, and the bass playing just blew me away. And I actually found a book by, I don't know how I even found it, that the James Jamerson book.
Sure.
And that book changed my life. And that, for example, that's a part, like, that's a DNA, for example, because this guy is like the father of the R&B and that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into that book like it was an etude book. Like, I learned it inside and out. And then I did the same with Mexican music, with Cuban music, because I'm Cuban, but I never played Cuban music in Cuba. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I was playing jazz and stuff like that. And, you know, of course, the Cuban music works in my heart and my soul, but I really learned about the greatness of Cuban music here in the United States.
How about that?
So, again, I went back. See, the thing is that, I don't want to extend this question too long, but kids nowadays, they go to, like, for example, let me put an example, Jaco Pastorius. Jaco Pastorius is an amazing bass player, an innovator, a pioneer, all of that, but he was mainly like a soloist on the instrument. You know what I mean? So the bass has been a solo instrument as well since the 1700s, but the primary function of the instrument is to play bass, is to, you know, set a foundation for the other instruments to develop, right? So you got to learn the foundation. So what I'm trying to say is, like, Jaco was incredible, but before Jaco, it was James, you know, it was Ray Brown, it was Gary Pickup, it was Paul Chambers, George Duvivier, Ron Carter, and so on and so forth. You know, and you got to learn about all those guys too. And that's how you create your music vocabulary. You know, taking from the old guys and going successively like that throughout the history, and then that's how you develop your vocabulary.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that you've mentioned about that time is that you said you needed to develop your pocket and a great sound in order to compete in that scene there. Tell us a bit how you do that. How do you develop a pocket? How do you get that groove and that feel?
Again, it comes with what I just mentioned, going back and learning the fundamentals of each music, right? And then when you finally get the job, listen. Just listen. It's like you and I having a conversation now. If you start telling me a question or I start talking over you, you're not in the pocket. I'm not in the pocket. You know what I mean? So that's what I do. When you hear the drummer playing, just see what it is. There's a lot on, again, I'm going to explain on the bass playing. There's a lot of bass players that play a lot of ghost notes. And that's killing when you're playing by yourself. When you're playing with a drummer and a guitar player and a keyboard player and a horn section, it gets bothersome, man. So if you do king, and you leave the space, all of a sudden, the music breathes more, man. It breathes more. It feels better. And I learned that early on in the studio when I would come in and try to impress the people, you know, and do all of that. Hey, you know, you think you can play a little less? A little less? You know, so you learn when they start calling you.
Right.
You know, you learn really quick.
Sure. Part of that is, you mentioned drummers, and I believe at one point, didn't you actually buy a drum kit and sit down with a book of rudiments and figure that out?
That was a beautiful story because I was having problems. This dear friend of mine, I don't want to mention his name because he's really famous, but we would be on the job playing, and he was a master of rhythm, you know, so he would display the figure, like he would be playing, and he would totally lose me, you know. I'd be like, ah, and he would be screaming at me on the gig, and so I said, okay, I gotta learn this, because it's not a matter, it's not technical, so you have to understand it to be able to. So I went and I bought a little drum set, and I bought a couple of books. I bought a book from a guy called Gavin Harrison, I think. It's called Rhythmic Illusions. And he had everything explained. And he had like an MP3 and everything. I could hear how it was. So I was playing with the guy. So I was shedding in the house, and all of a sudden, then I had, a month after that, I had like a gig with the same drummer. So I went to the gig, and he started playing, and he did it, and I went with him. And he started freaking out, like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, and then I went back, and he's like, no, you're lost. I said, no, I'm not lost. I know where you are now.
Right.
You know, so that's the story with the drums, but then I traded it for a Fender.
But you took that back, right? Right? You took that whole rhythm thing.
Yeah.
And you've said that rhythm is king.
Yeah.
That melody and all the rest of it, chops and everything, are secondary to that.
In my opinion, rhythm is king because it's more interesting, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's more interesting. Like, just imagine, and I like to illustrate the stuff, playing and stuff, but not, since I don't have my bass, I love singing it. So let's say that you have to improvise. Check out the difference. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of notes, right? So, to me, that's cooler.
Right.
You know, because it creates more tension. It's I don't know, it has more dimension. It's just different. Anybody can play fast and stuff. If you spend enough time on your instrument practicing, you will get the technical ability. But then again, there's the music after that. And to me, rhythm is music.
Mm-hmm. So do you sit with a metronome then to work that out? Do you play with drum loops? How do you get that feel? How do you learn that?
Okay, so metronome is a great conversation. You know, the metronome is a great tool to have. It's a great tool to practice to, but with a good measure. Meaning, if you give yourself too much information when you are practicing, you're not making the time. Meaning, if you have this, you're not creating any time because you are waiting for this. This is supporting you all the time. So now if you, instead of doing that, you do 2, 3, 4, and that's 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4,
right.
2, and you are creating the time in between that, you're golden.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really, it's super hard, man. It sounds so simple, but it's really hard to do that. 2, 3, 4, 2, and filling those spaces.
Right.
You know, so that's how I use it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I use it. So I give myself as little information as I can all the time. And, you know, it might be controversial or people think, oh, man, but that's boring. But it's great.
Yeah, right.
But it's great. It will help you for real. When you get up for that, forget about it. You're a machine.
Right.
So that's how I use it.
Right, right, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a little bit of, we had Bootsy Collins was here not too long ago, and he was talking about the importance of the one.
Right.
As long as you hit the one, everything else
Absolutely.
takes care of itself, as long as
Absolutely.
you know where that one is.
Absolutely. That's in American music. In Cuban music, there's no one.
No?
There's no one.
Right, right. So then I guess you could move that to different points in the measure. You could put it even to different subdivisions and work
For example, like the way I put it now, I don't even put it on the 1, I put it on 2. Because, you know, all American music is filled in 2. You know? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I put it in 2, so it gives you a different feel.
Right.
It gives me a different feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've talked a little bit about technique as well in different interviews, and you said something about speed is not important on bass. What's important is coordination.
Right.
And that everybody has one hand that's faster than the other.
Right.
I've seen you do some things like some Hanon piano exercises on your Facebook page and things. And talk a little bit about that, about the importance of synchronizing your hands and the tone and all of those kinds of things.
That is the true secret of being fast or having speed or dexterity on the instrument, is having both of your hands to the same speed. Because, for example, my left hand was always faster than my right hand. So I had to work really hard to get them both at the same speed. Mm-hmm. And so I tell that to my students or the guys that I talk to. It's like, I'm not faster than you, I'm just more coordinated than you. That's all it is, you know. So you spend enough time, and when you are able to realize which of your hands is the problematic one, you solve the problem, you know, because then you start working on that. So I found that for me crossing the strings was hard, right? Like going up. Coming down is easy. Going up was hard for me. So I would just practice exercise going up, go up, go up. Like for example, a great way of practicing is finding the problematic spot of the etude you're practicing, right? So let's say I'll sing 3 bars. Oh, that's bad. Oh my God. Don't start from the beginning again. Go to where that part is. Because when you go and you play, you already play that. Play the problematic part and you go on that. You go on that, and that's a way that you start solving all this stuff. The coordination with your hand, and with your hands and your brain, your soul, and everything flows better that way.
Right.
But it's a way of finding your trouble areas and working on that.
Right. That's a very classical approach, to work through things and find the trouble spots and smooth those over. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And I learned that. That's not something I came out with. I learned that from my dad. My dad would hear me practicing. I would drive him nuts because my room was on top of his room, and I would be the upright bass is not a very pleasant instrument to hear when you're starting. Like really ugly. But he would hear me make the mistake and go back to the beginning. And one day he came like, look, man, you're wasting your time. Practice what you can play. That's what you need to practice. Don't play what you already know how to do. Practice what you can't play. So that's a great approach.
Makes great sense.
Yeah.
It makes great sense. So you've mentioned upright bass and electric bass, and you double. You're equally adept at both of those. How do each of those inform the other?
They're not very you know what? They have the same function, and that's where they similarities go. Because first of all, the upright bass is a very physical instrument. It's very physical, It's the kind of strings you gotta put on the instrument is nothing like the electric bass. That's number one. The notes come out of the instrument differently because the upright kind of breathes, ha, ha, ha. It has a different type of attack. The electric bass is instant. You know what I mean?
Right.
So also you cannot play with the same kind of strength you play the upright electric because you start distorting the pickups and getting a really unpleasant sound.
Right.
So and the fingerings, and the electric bass you play with 4 fingers. In the upright bass you play with 3 fingers. And then you play with this on the thumb position.
Right.
So they're very different. People think it's the same. It's not.
Right.
They are the same instrument and everything, but that's my opinion. People can say, he's wrong, and that's okay. Well, in my opinion, I love them both, and they're both really hard. And another thing, for example, this position. Your hand is normally straight like that, right?
Right.
When you get the electric bass, check this out. That changed your whole world right there. You see? Because then you have this to deal with, which is terrible for you. You should never have anything that is not natural in your instrument, right? So that for me was a really big change. For example, from coming from this to this, it was really hard for me. And another thing, on the upright, you have a thing that is called the muscle memory. In relationship to your body, you kind of know where your notes are, right? On the electric bass, it's a whole different vibe because it's a long neck like this. Sometimes you gotta look at it because it's, so they're kind of different, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. Very interesting. So, speaking of electric bass, you've been a Federa artist for a lot of years, and Vinny and the crew over there are absolutely awesome. We did a tour not long ago of their facility. It's just the woods and things they have are just gorgeous.
Man, thank God, man. Thank God. I love that company, and to me, that's a new Stradivarius of the bass. The care and the materials, as you mentioned, that they use, and the time they take on the instrument, and not only that, they listen to the players, man. I have an amazing story with them. So I know them since 1998. I had some basses. I had a couple of their instruments back then, and I made the huge mistake of selling them. Because I was searching for other things and stuff. And, you know, I was out of the family for a few years. And then I came back. They called me, man, we want you back, you know, we want you to be here. And the best thing ever happened to me, you know. So they gave me the first instrument, my Blondie. I love it. It's a, you know, it's an instrument, so maple neck and all there. It's traditional woods, but the top, it had like a buckeye pearl, like amazing wood, right? So I love the instrument, the sound, the feel, and everything. But the look, I was a little bit conflicted because I do many kinds of, I do different types of jobs. Mm-hmm. Rock and roll, jazz, cumbia, salsa, whatever comes my way, right? So one day I came to them and I said, hey guys, you know, man, the bass is amazing, but I need a bass that looks a little bit more rock and roll. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, man, you know, the thing is that I cannot go to play on a rock with a rock band with a bass that looks this way. You know, before I play a note, they're gonna, you know. So they say, okay, what do you need? I said, well, would you make it look like more classical, like painted and put a pick guard and all that? And they did. Mm-hmm. And that bass became a hit, man. Huge. You know? Nice. So they listen to the player. Not only that, and in technical things are like, hey, could you voice the preamp different for me? And they'll do whatever you need to do. Right. So they're very accommodating to the customer and to the artist and all that. So they're about making the best instrument, and they really are making the best instrument there is.
It's awesome. They're incredible basses.
Yep.
Carlitos, thanks so much for sitting down with us today. I know we got to get you on stage and get you doing your workshop, but man, you shared so much wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me to be here in this amazing facility. Wow, a lot of people have been telling me about this building, and they were right.
Right.
It's pretty impressive.
Thank you very much. I hope you come back soon.
All right.
We'd love to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me at GearFest 2018. I'm Mitch Gallagher.